Praise be and welcome to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast. In this episode, we're going to review the Season 5 finale for The Handmaid's Tale. If you guys make it to the end of this video and you enjoyed it, please remember to like and share and also check out our other playlists. Dylan, I am so sad that we're actually going to finish this season off. It was a wild ride and a lot of shit happened in this episode. But without further ado, give us your thoughts.
Well, may the Lord open. Yeah, I thought it was an excellent finisher for the series. It felt like a cliffhanger for bigger events for season 6, and hopefully we do get a season 6. Because I loved all the character developments that happened this season. We got a lot of intense moments between characters, and yeah, overall, I thought it was a great way to finish it off. And I think June's journey, the way it concluded with Serena, was so like symbolic. And we've seen them from start to finish. They've kind of had this similar journey, and now it's come full circle. But without further ado, what are your thoughts on this finale?
Yeah, well, this felt like a lot of characters will migrate. They're migrating in thoughts and they're just migrating physically. We see a lot of turmoil in Canada still. I think it's reached its maximum. It probably will even go further. And there were some surprises as well. I thought that the ideology from Canadians would be different, but it seems like they're resembling a lot of Gilead. I have some thoughts that I'll later like to talk about politically wise, because it's really interesting and it makes me really worried for humanity in general. And I feel like we're going to get to a point where there'll be a great reset, like hundreds of years to come or something like that. But you need individuals to implant certain ideologies. Anyways, I wanted to get into the episode starts where June orders Kevlar vest, right? So she's afraid after the shots that were fired in the last episode. And we see that Luke is still kind of supportive and whatnot. And then she gets a call from Tuello, right? And they talk a little bit about who was there at the event to shoot. And she went outside. And so why don't you just give us a little breakdown of what happened? Because that freaked me out.
Yeah, that was a very tense scene. And I love how they shot it because it was like you think like she's safe after talking to Tuello and she's going for a walk, and then suddenly like the music cuts and it's very silent, and then the next thing you know, it does like a whole pan around the whole neighborhood, and then you think, oh, is something gonna happen? And then June starts walking, and then this truck like lights up and it starts following her, and then all of a sudden it just like rams her over, and it's like, oh fuck. Yeah, I was surprised when I saw it. I was like, holy shit, I didn't expect to see that. And it's just like in her own neighborhood, she's not even safe. And that's ironic because this whole the episode is called Safe. Yeah, and she actually like oh my God, when I saw the arm, when the car ran over him, I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. Like I felt her pain in this episode. And then, yeah, Luke runs out to save her. And I hated what happened to Luke in this episode. I think it was so like unfair for him. Because he beats the guy out of the truck, and I think he kills him. And then later they have a warrant for his arrest. So yeah, so June, she's in the ICU and then she recovers, but she's a target now, right? And then as we see in Gilead, we see more of Nick, and he's actually like defending June, and he actually punched Commander Lawrence at one point because he's like, she's not a target, right? But do you think that was like a Gilead play, or do you think that was just like the Canadians reacting to this whole situation?
I think that's Gilead using Canada somehow, and they're like implanting certain people because the way how the camera positioning was shot, it seemed like Lawrence. There was something off about his behavior, but it was more of a reaction to Nick. And then all of a sudden we saw the commander behind him and he was like a little bit more chill. And they just shown that commander, so it seemed like he did something. And it makes me think, well, I think Lawrence won't actually lead this pack. I think that everyone's kind of conspirating against him in secret. And this whole episode, I didn't feel safe anywhere. So it's like the opposite of the title. Even for Nick, right? Nick was held in jail. The repercussions of that punch too was that his wife decided to leave him, and she's pregnant as well. I think also Nick had a good amount of screen time where he was making a deal with Tuello and that bridge, and so apparently he will be a mole. But it's interesting because they made the deal, and then all of a sudden Nick punched. I believe he punched Lawrence after. So like, I wonder what's going to happen with that. And who knows? Because Luke also now this episode was really centered around this. Well, we got to leave because after what happened, and it really wasn't Luke's fault. He physically attacked somebody in defense, and that person had a gun too. So the fact that they're going after him just shows, I guess it's like a Canadian law thing, and it's really strict. And so and plus he's basically an immigrant, so they want to put him in jail. They want to hold him in custody. So this whole episode is really escaping to someplace else that we'll talk about a little bit later, because it's like, oh shit, that's cool. And yeah, so they were going to take a plane. Stupidly though, I was like, are you guys serious? They're going to catch you right there,
Right.
So why don't you tell us about the little, what was the idea that June and Luke, where did they want it to go?
Well, June comes to this realization, and I think it was really warranted, because after everything that happened to her in these last couple episodes, I think, she finally had the right idea, like, we need to get the fuck out of here, right? Because Gilead or no Gilead, the situation here is getting too hot, and the Canadians are starting to become another enemy. So she tells Luke, like, we just need to get out of here, like, by any means. Like, we need to leave now, because we see what's happening now with Canada. It's like, it's becoming like what America was before Gilead took over, right? And, Luke, he's kind of like, he tries to be like and he's like, oh, Canada's not Gilead, right? But June is like, nah, like, America wasn't Gilead either until it happened, right? So I'd rather go now than wait for it to be too late, and then we have to go through this bullshit all over again, right? So as they're leaving, Tuello actually like intercepts them, and I actually like Tuello in this episode. He seemed like he's actually like trying to like help June a lot in these last couple episodes. So he tries to help them escape. So he helps them get on a train going westward. And then Luke, unfortunately, because they're looking for him because of the whole thing with the truck driver, they have a warrant for his arrest. So Luke is like, there's only one way that you're going to get out of here, and that's without me, right? So he persuades June to get on the train, and then she has to leave without him. She has Nicole. But Luke kind of like distracts the police officer, right, for her to get away. But then the next scene was even more interesting because I hadn't seen Serena in this whole episode.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, where the fuck is Serena? Like, is she going to show up? Because the last episode she got picked up by that one chick in the car. And then I was like, oh, fuck, there's only one scene that they would reveal her, right? And it was this scene where June is walking through the train, and then she hears a baby crying, and it's like, oh, look, there's another baby on this train. And then who do we see? It's Serena, and she's got Noah with her.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did you think of like seeing her and that whole kind of like final meeting between them?
Oh, best friend time, I guess. But yeah, because they're going to Hawaii, right? So that's the place. And that's. I don't know. June has become somebody that's like, she always looks like crazy, understandably so. So I thought that she was going to do something to Serena there, but for some reason I feel like now they're completely away from Canada. That we kept on hearing about Canada since season 1, and they're away from America, and now they're all the way in Hawaii. So I feel like it's this kind of fresh start, but you still have the leftovers. Like, we didn't get anything about Moira, we didn't get anything about Rita, Luke, Nick. So I wonder what's going to happen with those characters, but it looks like they're going to be on their own, and I wonder if they're going to kind of, because since they're alone, I wonder if they're going to kind of like live together in like some place. So yeah, I mean, that was a really iconic shot, I feel. And also I wanted to because here's the thing too, because from the very start, it seemed like the show was making commentary on conservatism that's kind of strewed in a way, right? Because these people, they're conservatives, but they, you're not supposed to rape, you're not supposed to do all that stuff, right? Conservatives won't stand for that, and how they took advantage. And I think that's the main point. They kept on taking advantage. And again, we talked about this in another episode about like the Second Amendment. A lot of people are like anti-guns and stuff like that. But the whole point of the Second Amendment is to fight a tyrannical government, which is what Gilead has become. And I find it interesting that such a liberalized place such as Canada, that is like extremely liberal, It's like the fact that now they're becoming, I wouldn't say conservative, but perhaps now maybe this is the early stages of twisting it. And I wonder how far they'll go, because the people want to be like Gilead. So you could be conservative. That's fine to be Republican. But the fact that now you're going to be exactly like Gilead eventually, it makes me wonder, especially how all these people are immigrating now to Hawaii. I'm thinking, well, to get rid of this problem that's happening right now, it'll probably take like hundreds of years. Like there has to be a new generation. Right now, it looks like we're seeing the first tribe, and they're going to get together, right? And perhaps eventually they're going to have their own political system in place. But I wonder, it makes me think, well, the political system is failing everybody. And it's not really about politics at the end of the day. Now I'm thinking like it's just people who want power, and to abuse that power is a really scary thought. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, it definitely feels like I wouldn't even say Canada is becoming far right. I mean, it seems that way, but I think at the end of the day, they're just really concerned for their own citizens, and they probably feel that, you know, this isn't their fight. And they see like all these refugees, and they're probably thinking, well, you know, Gilead is probably coming after them, so we need to get rid of them because otherwise they'll come for us too, right? But they're going about it the wrong way, I think. And like you said, it's definitely like about, you know, power. It's not about like, well, I mean, you could say there's political messages strewn into the show, but yeah, it's definitely about like, you know, power and abuse of power, right? So I wonder like where Serena and June go from here. Like, do they, like you said, maybe they start their own tribe? Like maybe they found like this kind of like Alexandria like type of like colony someplace else, and maybe, who knows, maybe Gilead isn't gonna let that slide, because they're both very powerful women, you know, in this show. Like Serena is very influential, and June is a symbol for the rebellion, right? So having them together, like as a like a dynamic duo, like they're not gonna let that slide, right? But also I wanted to get your thoughts on the side plot of this episode, which was Janine and Aunt Lydia. And we see so Mrs. Putnam, of course, in the last episode was proposed to by Commander Lawrence, and then this episode they kind of had this whole wedding scene, and then Aunt Lydia is told that she has to post Janine somewhere, otherwise they're gonna find another use for her. So she goes to plead to Mrs. Putnam and is like, can you just take her back? You know, she'll change her ways. And she tries to convince Janine, like, hey, you'll see Angela again. You know, if you just do this, you can see your daughter. And it started going off like well for the first couple of minutes, and then Janine just has this confrontation with Mrs. Putnam, and it's like, oh, you think we're friends just because you know, we share a daughter, we share a household? Like, no. And then she's basically it's like, fuck you, right? So I wanted to get your thoughts on like that whole interaction, and where do you think Janine's story will go from here?
Yeah, well, I think that her mindset changed when she had that confrontation with this one Martha. And that after hearing about June and what happened to June, and that June's not safe, like, oh, I thought June would be safe in Canada. And these guys, they're not letting her go, right? No matter where she is, they're going to follow her. And I think that at that moment, Janine thought, well, I'm not safe anywhere. I'm eventually going to die. Like this is an abuse, right? And especially like in the earlier conversation, she was like, you know, I'll let you see, I believe her name is Angela, right? The baby. I'll let you see her like over the, like after the summer. So you have to wait, right? There's so much like stuff you have to do first before I'll give you the privilege to see your own daughter. And she was trying to hold her tongue, but I think she's been beat up too much. Again, I always compare Janine, unfortunately, to like a beat up dog, right? So much shit happened to her. Her eye is gone, right? And she's got into this place where perhaps she didn't have as much fight as anymore. But I think that she came to this realization that I'm probably never going to see my daughter again. And look, June was safe, and now June's not safe. So these people are messing with everybody. So she approached Mrs. Putnam very aggressively. And I was surprised like that Lawrence, he ended up later on calling the eyes to go after Janine and I guess probably execute her or something. And maybe it was pressure from the other commanders. Maybe he has somebody watching people. I don't know. I think everything was it was very tension driven. So I wonder if Janine will actually end up dying next season. I think all safeties are off for next season. I think we're going to see a lot of deaths. Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. And that Martha got captured as well, and she was crying and stuff like that. So that was wild. I felt bad for Janine. I don't know what will happen to her. Probably death. Yeah.
Yeah, I even felt bad for Aunt Lydia too.
Oh
She
yeah.
kind of like broke down.
I know.
And she was like I think like Janine was like her favorite handmaid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard because you can't really like play favorites in this society, but I think Janine was kind of like her prodigal child. So seeing her, throw that whole opportunity away and then get like sent to the colonies, I think that kind of like broke her down emotionally. And I mean, she even tried to like fight the eyes at one point. She's like, let her go, right? And then she kind of just broke down. So I wonder if that is like the spark for her character development. Like, is she finally going to defect because of this moment? Because now she realized, her favorite child has been taken away from her, and she realized that could happen to any of these girls as well. Like, does this start her down the road of maybe she starts? I mean, we've kind of seen already that she's been kind of like resisting these commanders and their agenda a little bit, but I think now it's like maybe she goes like full defection. What do you think?
Well, what's that like Greek myth story that was like Hephaestus or something, the guy who rolls the boulder up the hill for it to fall back down?
Oh,
each
Atlas.
time? Yeah.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's kind of like her story arc. I feel like I'm wondering if she's not going to have this realization eventually. Like, she'll keep on trying to find little ways to help people, but eventually that's also her failure. Like, I wonder if she'll, like, that's her full arc. It's kind of unsatisfying, but I heard long time ago, apparently there's going to be a spinoff with Aunt Lydia. Or, she's in talks a lot with Lawrence, and there are like members of Mayday in there circulating about. So perhaps she finds like an easy way to access these people, and that's when she could start helping people. I don't know. I for sure no one's like on her side, right? I feel like she's on her own side, and even if she's on the handmaid side, it's kind of like weird. It's like when they were singing, it's a hard knock knife. She was like, oh, perhaps a more better hymn or something like that, or like some religious thing. So it's like she's still like on her own, and I don't know where that'll lead her. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, she's kind of like, she's like Serena for me. Like, she has moments where like she's very humanized, and then you start like liking her a bit, but then she goes back to her old ways, right? It's like she doesn't really give up fully like this whole ideology that's been kind of like she's been drinking the whole series. But I think she has room for change. I mean, if Serena could defect, maybe she can. And maybe for her, it's even more impactful, right? Because she's built a relationship with these handmaids and seeing what they've gone through. Maybe she starts realizing, the kind of evil that she's contributed to, right? And now seeing like the commanders and how they're not really like faithful to their own word. I think that'll start changing her mind a bit. But yeah, I don't think Janine is gonna die right away. Maybe she'll be sent to the colonies, and maybe she starts finding her way back to June, or maybe she starts her own kind of rebellion. That's what I like about this show. Is like you see like different perspectives. It's not all about June, right? You see different pockets of characters and how they kind of like relate to this whole event that's going on, right? And they kind of start. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. They're like they have their own little conflicts, right, in the show. But yes, what are your predictions for what we'll see potentially for season 6, and what was your final rating for this episode and this series as a whole?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot more of Hannah. I think we have to. And I also think that June and Serena have a lot to talk about. I think they have plenty of time to talk and confront each other even more, and perhaps give each other a little bit of certain aspects of how they want to live their life. Like Serena will realize some stuff from June, and June will Serena will also teach June some stuff, or vice versa, or whatever. Sorry. But yeah, I think that Luke, I wonder if Luke and Nick will be in cahoots somehow because they're both in jail, and it's kind of interesting to see. Like, I wonder if they're going to work together to get back to June. But that's the thing too. It's like, how are they going to get Hannah? Like, I wonder if Hannah's just a lost cause. At the end of the day, and also, since this is the last season next time, it's like, I don't know. I don't think Gilead will be liberated. I don't think there is no liberation. I really don't. I don't think there's, because I think other countries will adopt this ideology. So I don't think there will be a liberation. I think you just have to have a place with your tribe. I think that's what it comes down to, where you can kind of build society slowly. And again, I think it's generational. That's what Lawrence thought about. And I think he's on point with that. But I think if you build a society somewhere else, you'll be a lot safer. Like, even if they go like somewhere like, I don't know, Peru or something like that, and live in the jungle, perhaps even that's better. That's where they could truly be free, and cut ties with world in general. So I think that the next season will be very sincere. And I think that some people may sacrifice themselves, because we still have that Gilead side. We still have Janine. We still have other characters like Esther. And I'm wondering, like, what will happen to those characters? Or it could just be all out war too. It could be something like that. To be honest with you, like, I remember I was telling you, like, with them, we should get into this because the show is like great. I love this show so much. It relates so much to our times. I love this season. I actually love this season more than I did last season. And I think in general of the season, I would give it like a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed it a lot. This episode, I probably would also give probably a 9 out of 10. Just because how I felt about it. But I thought it ended really strong. And I think there's plenty of things, plenty of loose ends to tie us over for the next season. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah, great points. I agree with you. I think Gilead is too powerful at the moment to be toppled, at least from the outside, right? Because they showed that, they tried to do this operation and they failed. So obviously Gilead they have such a broad intelligence. So the only way you could really break it is from the inside, right? So I have a feeling that they're going to have like a civil war next season, because that's the only thing. Like, if you look at like major powers, sometimes they have like conflicts, like inner conflicts. And especially because Lawrence has this whole Bethlehem project, that's a very liberal transition for them too. So I have a feeling a lot of the commanders are going to try and, overthrow him. And maybe they have like this new Gilead and this old Gilead, and maybe they try to fight each other. And yeah, I was wondering too about Hannah, because we didn't see her in this episode, so I was like wondering, like, how are they gonna get her out as well, right? And I think that's a good point what you said about like Luke and Nick, because it's interesting because they're both arrested on both sides of the border, right? So maybe and that could be an interesting story too, because they both love June, right? Yeah. So how do they kind of like cope with each other, right? Knowing that they both have June's like affection, and they both have daughters with June too, right? I think that could make an interesting story. And even like, yeah, the June and Serena thing, it's like, how are they going to coexist now as allies, right? Because they're, for the most part, I mean, they're still on the opposite ends of where they stand, but I think their goals have been kind of like aligned now, because they both want to keep their children safe. So yeah, maybe they kind of like help each other in a way. It could be really interesting. I'd love to see more of like their newfound relationship, right? How they'll go far to protect each other, right? And who knows? Maybe Serena will help June get Hannah back somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, great series. I mean, I got into it, pretty late, but I love the series. I know you've been a devout watcher since season 1, so yeah. If you guys are new to this series, yeah, I would say it's awesome. It definitely worth a watch. This episode I would also give 9 out of 10, and this series as a whole I'd give 10 out of 10 for me.
Awesome, man. Well, you heard it from the handmaid himself. Well, everybody, that is our completion of Handmaid's Tale season 5. This was a wild ride. And if you guys made it to this episode in this playlist, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we want to thank all our new subscribers as well. Welcome to the Lunch Table Podcast. And I hope that you stick with us. We have plenty of content coming up soon.
Oh, they can't leave. They can't leave.
They can't leave.
Gilead.
Exactly.
You fuckers.
Yeah, that's how it has to be, right? Especially
Right.
we have coming up Friday of this time of this recording, Black Panther with our friend
Ooh.
and a special guest and a regular, Jerome, also known as Black Vanitas. And we have a lot of stuff for November as well and December. But Dylan, take us away.
Yes, so thank you guys for tuning in to this review. We still have one more show we're finishing up, Andor. We're doing a review for episode 10 right after this, but we still have a couple more episodes left for that series. And then, yes, we have Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and a couple more movies. And we also just released 2 Let's Talk About episodes. If you want to check those out, those were really fun. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, you can check us out also on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Music as well. And you can check us out on our socials on Instagram and TikTok as well. So thank you guys so much. And until then, praise be.
Praise be. See you guys.
This fucking thing will not stay.
I'm itchy.
No wonder they're mad as fuck in this series.
Ah.